Olabafetu, welcome to the Township Talks, where we are all about unveiling the heartbeat of township tales, where stories spark and community flourishes. Before we start, I'd like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to everyone who has followed us on social platforms. On Instagram, we are at Township underscore talks. On Facebook, we are the Township Talks. A special gratitude to all of you guys who have listened to our first episode, which was the intro. That episode is found on all digital platforms, being Spotify Music, Apple Podcast, and also YouTube. If you haven't followed us, please follow us, like our videos, like our podcast, and most importantly, to those of you who are YouTube fans, please follow us and subscribe on our YouTube channel. On today's episode, I would like us to talk about the history of our South African townships. Before we start, I'd like to ask you a question. What comes to mind when you think of the township? Give it some thought, and you are most welcome to engage with us on our social media platforms, Instagram and Facebook. On Instagram, we are at the Township underscore talks, and on Facebook, we are the Township Talks. Right, so let's get on to it. South Africa has hundreds of townships across its 9 provinces. The exact number can be challenging to pin down due to the varying definitions of what constitutes a township and the development of informal settlements that may or may not be officially recognized as townships. So the general estimates vary from or over around the number 200, right? So with formal townships, there are over 200 formally recognized townships in South Africa. And there's about over 500 informal settlements, which it brings the total count of township-like areas to, well, over 500, as I've mentioned. These numbers can fluctuate as new areas are developed. Some areas are classified or reclassified rather, and others merge or are absorbed into expanding urban areas. Sibiza ngemizabalazo. Those of you who are familiar with the term would know what I'm talking about. So, townships in South Africa have a very complex and significant history that is deeply intertwined with the country's colonial and apartheid past. Here's an overview of the development and history of townships. Number one, we look at the colonial roots, its early origins, and some of the acts that were established during that time. So, the early origins, the concept of separating people based on race and class in South Africa dates back to the colonial period. During the 19th century, as cities like Cape Town and Durban grew, the colonial authorities began implementing racial segregation policies, albeit on a smaller scale compared to what would later develop. We see the Glen Grey Act in 1894. This was introduced by Cecil Rhodes, and this act was one of the early forms of institutionalized segregation, which aimed at controlling the movement and labor of the black population, confining them to specific areas. So if you thought that townships were, or segregation only stems from apartheid, now you've got new information. Number two, we look at urbanization and segregation. With industrialization, the discovery of gold and diamonds in the late 19th century, there was a significant migration of black population or black people from rural areas to urban centers to work in mines and industries. These led to the establishment of informal settlements near urban areas. On the very same note, we have the Native Urban Areas Act of 1923, which basically was one of the first formal attempts to regulate the presence of black people in urban areas. It also restricted their movement, making them temporary sojourners in cities who were only there to provide labor. As a result, many were forced to live in segregated areas known as the locations. Between 1948 and 1994, this is where we see the era of apartheid. Most of us are familiar with it. In 1950, there was a Group Areas Act, which was one of the cornerstones of apartheid. This law enforced racial segregation in residential areas across South Africa. It forcibly removed non-white populations from areas designated for whites, creating racially homogeneous neighborhoods. Townships were established on the peripheries of cities to house non-white populations, particularly black South Africans. These areas were often overcrowded, underdeveloped, and lacked basic services like sanitation, electricity, and proper housing. I think some of these areas that we see today still lack those resources. Some places are, most townships, as a matter of fact, are overcrowded. Some places are also underdeveloped, and the likes of Tshwane, where they struggle with basic service like water. We still see those even today. So here are just two examples of townships. As you know, there's quite a few, there's quite a lot of number of rather townships in South Africa. The famous popular one that comes to mind when you talk about township within South African perspective is the southwestern townships, known as Soweto. Established outside Johannesburg in the 1930s, Soweto became one of the largest and most famous townships in South Africa, known for its role in the anti-apartheid struggle. The other famous one, it's located outside Cape Town. Sorry if you thought I was going to say Tembisa, but this is none other than Khayelitsha. Khayelitsha was established in the 1980s as one of the last townships created during apartheid. It was intended to consolidate black African populations in one area away from the city center. So within the township, there's quite a number of events that unfolded, especially within the apartheid era. So the famous one and the most prominent one that every young person is bound to know, especially the youth of that time, is the 1976 Soweto uprising. Here we see townships becoming the centers of resistance against apartheid. The Soweto uprising was a turning point where students protested against the compulsory use of Afrikaans in schools, leading to a brutal crackdown by the apartheid regime. And we also see that most community organizations, especially those within the political sector, started and were formed in the townships. Many townships were hotbeds of political activities, with organizations like the African National Congress and the Pan African Congress gaining significant support within the townships. Grassroots organizations, including civic associations and trade unions, also played a crucial role in mobilizing that kind of resistance during that time. So, as we move post apartheid development, this is now 1994. Some of you guys would know it as the New Dawn. Yeah, they call it the New Dawn. So, it hasn't been a smooth sailing journey. So there are a few challenges that the government faced, uh, transiting or moving from apartheid to post-apartheid. So some of the challenges are: after the end of apartheid in 1994, the African National Congress government faced the massive challenge of improving the living conditions in townships. Despite some progress, many townships remained underdeveloped with high levels of poverty, unemployment, and crime. We've seen the urban renewal projects where various initiatives have been undertaken to upgrade townships, including providing housing, improving infrastructure, and fostering economic opportunities. However, the legacy of apartheid era planning remains evident, with many townships still geographically isolated from economic hubs. While this might be seen as a challenge or a problem, it also can be seen as an opportunity where townships become their own economic hubs. We've seen that with the development of malls, shopping complexes within the townships, filling stations within the townships. Yet again, these places are geographically isolated from economic hubs. We also see the cultural identity within the township. Despite the hardships, townships have become strongholds of cultural identity and resilience. They have produced vibrant cultural movements, including music genres like Kwaito and of now late Amapiano, and have been the birthplace of influential South African leaders and activists. In conclusion, the townships in South Africa are a symbol of country's divided past, but also of its ongoing struggle for equality and justice. Their history is a testament to the resilience of the people who lived and continue to live in them. Now that we've established and learned about the history of townships, I just wanted us to talk about some of the most popular townships that we have in South Africa and the years in which they were established in an ascending order, right? Maybe if you take some time to guess as to which one is the oldest. Yep, let us take some time to think about which township in South Africa is the oldest. You are free to drop us a comment on the comment section of the one that you thought is actually the oldest before I unveil the list. So this is the point where we expect a drum roll, just because we don't have it, but we have something. Let's hear. I love it when you call me señorita. Oh gosh, oh gosh. Right, let's get to the list. Sitting comfortably at number one is none other than New Brighton and Port Elizabeth. This was established in 1902. Yes, you'd think Soweto, but Soweto is not the one. As a matter of fact, Soweto is number two, which is Orlando Soweto, in Johannesburg. This was established in 1931. Number three, we see Langa, which is in Cape Town. It was established in 1927. Sitting number four is Tembisa 1632, which is in Ekurhuleni. This was established in 1957. So Soweto, being the southwestern townships and the various areas around its place, it was developed, like I said, in 1930, but there is a big but. The various areas developed over decades. So the biggest one here is Orlando, before it was named or before it fell under Soweto. Right, on number five, we have Khayelitsha, which was established in 1983. Khayelitsha is in Cape Town. And number seven, we have Ntanzane in East London, established in 1963. Number eight, we have Kwamashu Durban, which was established in 1958. And Mitchell's Plain was established in 1976. So when students in Soweto were protesting, some people establishing Mitchell's Plain. And on the last one on the list is Atteridgeville in Pretoria. This was established in 1939. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, this list includes only a selection of townships and focuses on more well known ones, representing different regions in South Africa. So if your township is not mentioned here, worry not. In fact, drop us a comment mentioning your township and the year it was established in the comment section. I'd like to see that. That, ladies and gentlemen, was a list of some of the popular townships that we have in SA. And as we've mentioned, that there are still some challenges that we are facing as residents of townships, especially when it comes to overcrowding, um, underdevelopment, as well as some places lacking basic services like sanitation, electricity, and proper housing. On the next episode, I'd like to talk more about some of these challenges, crime, businesses as well. So please do drop us your comment, what you'd like us to talk about. Um, Engage with us on all social media platforms. Drop us your comments on the comment section. Let us keep the conversation going. I remember to subscribe to our channel on YouTube, follow us on Spotify Music, Apple Podcast. Engage with us on IG and Facebook. On Facebook, we are the Township Talks, and on Instagram, it's at Township underscore Talks. From me, Neo, your host, signing out. Asante.